For my next 2020 Overwatch League Team Preview, I've decided to focus in on the Paris Eternal, who I think have had a very interesting off-season so far. They were one of the first teams to make a real splash, with the major signings of Sparkle and Coach Rush, alongside other Korean talent, before going rather quiet since, aside from a couple of other additions. So, with all this new talent joining the side, including arguably the biggest name from contenders, will next season see Paris improve, or will they in fact underwhelm again? Like Atlanta, Paris are one of the 8 expansion teams that joined the league last season in 2019. They really branded themselves as Europe's team, and as such came with a roster fully made up of Europeans. On the whole, pre-season expectations were positive, as many of the European players were seen to be particularly strong in the GOATS meta, whilst the team could also bring in their star player soon, once DPS reappeared. Once the season started though, it soon became apparent that this team wasn't nearly as good as many had projected. They weren't awful, and indeed put together a few strong performances, like against the Gladiators, but even during Stage 1 they suffered some ugly losses, such as their 4-0 defeat to Atlanta, that left them with a 3-4 record at the end of Stage 1. It wasn't really one issue alone for the Eternal either, with both a lack of overall quality across the team, and especially at main tank and flex support, but also poor communication and coordination derailing them in most of their matches. It's fair to say that things didn't improve in Stage 2, with the team's record dropping to 2-5, and in general, throughout the rest of the season, they kind of just remained at this subpar level, even following the return of DPS play in stages 3 and 4, with back-to-back 3 and 4 stages leaving them with a regular season record of 11 and 17, within 14th position at the end of the season. This meant they just missed out on the play-ins, although to be honest, they hadn't shown nearly enough quality at any point in 2019 to really make a case that they deserved to be there. So, after a mediocre and disappointing past season, let's see what the team has done with their roster ahead of next year. At DPS, Soon and Nico return, while Shadowburn and Danye have been released. In their places of this position, the team has signed arguably the biggest name coming out of contenders this year, Sparkle, formerly of Element Mystic, as well as his teammate Z. Tank meanwhile sees only Ben Best survive, with the team dropping Finzi, and also LH Cloudy, who has now joined the LA Gladiators. In terms of signings here, Paris have brought in Hanbin, another former teammate of Sparkle from Element Mystic, No Smite, the former Hangzhou Spark sub, and also Smex, the Brit from Montreal Rebellion, who had been on the UK World Cup roster for the past 3 years. Lastly, the supports have seen the least change, with all 3 members of their 2019 roster being kept on, in Cruz, Grey and Hip. However, the Eternal have rounded out this position group with a recent acquisition of FD God from Young and Beautiful. It's hard to pinpoint the exact direction that Paris has tried to go towards this off-season, but there are a few key themes. The first being that all their previous French players have remained on the team, with the supports being the only surviving Europeans not from France. The side is also officially committed to a mixed roster for some point in 2020, with 4 Koreans joining the squad, although Hanbin and Sparkle will miss games due to them being underage when the season gets underway. I think the best place to start when previewing Paris for next season is to look at the changes they've made at their coaching staff, as this helps to inform some of the decisions and moves that have been made. The biggest move in regards to this was the team making Rush their new head coach. This was a big appointment initially, as it guaranteed that Sparkle would be joining the team, as reportedly, both of them had decided they wanted to move into the Overwatch League together, having been a part of the Element Mystic setup for the last couple of years. Rush's appointment looks on paper to be a good one also, because of his track record of success, particularly over the course of 2019. He started the season by leading Element Mystic to first place in the first 2019 Korean Contender season, which he then followed up with further success at the Pacific Showdown. In the second Korean Contender season, Element Mystic just fell short of winning it all again, before bouncing back to win the Gauntlet that crowned the side the best Korean team in the world. Considering the success he's had in the last year, one would hope he's able to light a fire under what was an uninspired Eternal squad in 2019, especially as he should know how to best utilise his familiar Element Mystic additions of Z, Hanbin and Sparkle. Rush won't be alone in these efforts though, as with Paris bringing in 9K as general manager, they have a former coach helping to manage the team that has come from Krusty's staff and the success that the San Francisco Shock had last year, which should hopefully help them best adjust their mixed roster for success. Of course, both Rush and 9K aren't guarantees of success by any means, but in terms of having qualified individuals at the head coach and general manager positions, I don't think you can get too much better on paper from who is available this off-season, which should inspire some confidence at least, even if there's definitely a lot of work to be done, and still a number of questions that need answering. We should therefore now start looking at the players on this roster in more detail, so as usual, I'll begin at the DPS position. Soon's return comes as no surprise whatsoever, as one of the better and most popular parts of their 2019 team, not to mention the fact he's French as well. If we had been critical, we'd have to say that Soon struggled early last year in the GOATS meta, but we've seen in Stage 4, and more emphatically at the World Cup, that he's still a superb DPS player, particularly on heroes like Tracer and Widowmaker, so 2020 should give him a greater opportunity to show off his talent and quality that made him such a fan favourite in 2018, with large cries of Soon bound to erupt at the Paris homestand when he takes the stage there. More confusing, however, is the return of Nico to this squad. I've seen some people describe him as the worst DPS player in the league, but I don't think that's fair at all, given the fact he was probably one of the more consistent pieces last year compared to Soon and Shadowbird. That said, I don't think he's very good, and to me he looks like he's only on his team because he's French, rather than bringing a significant level of quality, which I worry could cause issues for Paris early into next season, considering the situation they find themselves in, but more on that shortly. Z meanwhile is a player that I think has been a little underlooked compared to the other signings the Eternal have made from Element Mystic. That's probably because he's been on the bench behind Sparkle and Doha for the last couple of metas, but from what I have seen, he's really good at hit scan and has a lot of potential, so if it becomes possible, a duo of him and Soon could be really strong. This finally brings me on to the headline man Sparkle, but also the key problem with this team's DPS. I've said it before, just like many others, but Sparkle is a fantastic prospect that has been great in Korean contenders over the past couple of years, particularly in 2019, and I think he can elevate this team when he comes of age, due to how nutty he can be. That's the problem though, he doesn't turn 18 until May 31st, meaning that Paris will be without him for 2/3 of this season. And looking at what the meta could be, there's a very good chance that the starting DPS duo over this period is Soon and Nico, which doesn't inspire me with too much confidence. To further add cause for concern, by the time Sparkle does come of age, it is entirely possible that his best heroes are no longer meta viable, or indeed that he doesn't live up to the expectations or hype, which would be a disaster for the Eternal, and likely derail their season if they haven't fallen apart already. On the flip side though, if Soon can step up and play at his best during the opening months of the season, steadying the ship until Sparkle arrives, and if his duo can then play up to the level people are expecting, then you could have an entertaining and dominant DPS pairing that might just be enough to carry this team into the play-ins. This is a team game however, and in my mind the biggest questions are on Paris' tank options, but I think the coaches will need to put some serious work into if they even want to scrape into the play-ins at all. I'd love to hear someone else tell me I'm wrong when I say that Bembest is an awful main tank, because I've seen no evidence to tell me otherwise. I mean, when you're beat out for the French World Cup side by someone from contenders, I think that should tell you that something isn't quite right. At least they've decided to bring in an alternative option in this position. No Smite, the mediocre at best substitute from the Hangzhou Spark? I honestly don't have a clue what they were thinking. Considering the mixed nature of this team, I get they wanted a Korean, but players like Bumper, Tizzy and Kaiser are on the market. And you pair arguably the worst main tank in the Overwatch League with a player who struggled in the Overwatch League last season from a bench role. This is where the coaches are going to have to earn their money, as this position could ruin their season before it's even started. Perhaps by specialising Bembest on Ryan and No Smite on Winston and Orisa, it could make a remarkable turnaround and surprise us all, but it's fair to say right now I'm not too confident. As for off-tank, there is a lot more optimism, with the signing of Hanbin being another highlight of this off-season for Paris in my mind. For much of the gauntlet, I thought Hanbin outplayed Sparkle as Element Mystic's best player, and I think both his Sigma and D.Va are really good. Like Sparkle, he will be underage when the season starts, but thankfully, this time it will only be for 2 or 3 matches, after which I expect him to start more regularly. In the meantime though, Smex I think will make an adequate stand-in, and it's great to see another Brit make the Overwatch League. I don't think he's amazing, but on both Montreal Rebellion and Team UK, he has shown a consistent level of reliable quality, which I think will suit this team for a couple of weeks, at least until Hanbin becomes available, whilst also being a capable backup when needed thereafter. As a whole though, it will probably be No Smite and Hanbin I guess for most of this season, but it's hard to say how this team will employ its mixed roster, with a choice of Western, Korean or mixed tank line. Assuming it is this pair though, it's hard to gauge how well they can do, with No Smite having struggled in the past, whilst Hanbin lacks Overwatch League experience. They could be quite good, but at the same time there's a risk that it doesn't click, and that will have to be avoided if this team wants to realistically challenge for a play-in spot. To finish off then, the last players we need to look at are the supports, and to me this is a position group that could be really hit or miss. Cruz and Gray return after a mixed bag of performances last year. No one can deny that the pair of them are playmakers, with a proven ability to turn fights around in their team's favour. But by the same token, they can also take this too far, which is shown for Paris last year, led to this pair sometimes dying early in teamfights, out of position from trying to be too aggressive. If this playmaking aggression is tempered a little, then they'll provide a much more solid foundation for the Eternal next season, but knowing the personality of Cruz especially, I'm not so sure we won't see much of the same. As for Hip, he's an interesting one, as in 2019 he wasn't good at all, with his Zen play really holding the team back before Gray came into the starting lineup, particularly with his poor usage of support ults. To his credit though, he did look a lot better at the World Cup, and with further development he could improve this year, but I still think he's primarily on the squad due to being French, and I don't expect him to start. That is, unless they decide to bring him in as a French support duo with their most recent signing FD God. This of course was the French World Cup support line, and again I'll say that it's surprisingly much better than I thought it would be. FD God was one of France's best players at this event, with a number of really impressive displays, and it is understandable why he's been brought in, as he's French and has shown in the past that he can pair well with Hip. I'd rather see him rotated in and out with Cruz to sometimes add a bit more reliability to the backline alongside Gray, but that's something we'll have to wait and see. I don't think this is the strongest group of players at support, and if they underperform, I could certainly see them holding back the Eternal next season. They are also the only area of the team with no Korean talent, which could complicate matters of communication should most of the Koreans be in the starting lineup. This is where I think Cruz will have a massive role to play though. After his time in Korea when he was playing Apex, he gained a large number of Korean fans, and in turn learnt some Korean words and phrases. This should help him not only communicate with his teammates, but also help to integrate everyone together to work as a team. So his role as a leader and glue of the team may be more important than ever if Paris wants to find success in 2020. As a conclusion though, it's really hard to say how this mixed roster is going to do next season, with the team having one of the larger variances in quality due to how many unknowns they have. If I had to guess, I'd place them just outside the play-in places, as they could really rank anywhere from making the playoffs to being inside the bottom 3, depending upon how their stars like Sun and Sparkle perform, and indeed if their tank and support lines can reliably hold things together and improve. Watching this team in the opening months of the season will tell us a lot about their potential and quality, because if they can do all right, they can put Sparkle in a positive environment, whereas a rival can propel them to a play-in spot. If they struggle at first, however, with the problems of quality and coordination I've pointed out arising, then this could be a really long season for the Eternal and their fans, which even the arrival of Sparkle may not be able to salvage, and that's assuming he lives up to expectations, which could very easily end up being more hype than substance, so we'll have to wait and see, even if I don't personally think this will be the case. For now though, that's all I've got to say on the Paris Eternal ahead of the 2020 Overwatch League season, and if you have made it to the end of the video, then I'd like to thank you for watching. I think today may be a double upload sort of day, so if you have enjoyed and don't want to miss out later on, then please be sure to like, subscribe and follow me on Twitter or at my Discord so you don't miss out. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.